collaboration between different ministries in some issues. So policy reforms is definitely something we can achieve quickly without lots of investments, just to make sure that systems work more effectively. Another one that I listed is food issues always related to health, community health, food cooperation in food security gives you leverage to address many other issues. And we're dealing with a lot of health issues and substance abuse issues in our communities. Food is not about food parcels. There are cases where food parcels as an emergency play a role, but ultimately food is about sustainability and healthy, nutritious meals, not only because that's one of our problems in South Africa, is the nutrition quality of what people are eating. In COVID, faith communities in South Africa collected a lot of data. If you deal with food security, you have to put systems in place of monitoring and getting accurate data to see what's happening. I've got a last point here. In South Africa, whenever there's disaster, sometimes there are some agencies that rush to get on TV as quickly as possible. I know why they do that, because you need the exposure to get money for what you're doing. But most often, the people that do most of the work never get on TV. It's the people that are locally based that makes a difference to their neighbors, reaching out to them. So these are only notes I want to share with you in my introduction. The floor is open for discussion totally. Any input, I would appreciate if you could keep it short. I would even appreciate it more if you can send us a note or scribble a note that we can capture for follow-up. Part of the discussion last night that I had with several people is how do we maintain the context and the good ideas that we've shaped here to take it further after this conference. So the floor is open. Anybody? Yes.
Good morning, and thank you so much for the great submissions. My name is Oliver Chikuzere, and I'm representing One Map Africa. So I want to make a brief recommendation, and of course, also an example of what we are doing. One Map Africa is based in Ghana. We have 32 chapters in different countries, and what we do, we acquire and collaborate with local partners, with land, and we do smart agriculture, from training, also the surplus food to be able to do business. The former President Thabo Mbeki did mention a couple of years ago that we need to encourage each other, because our young people, they think that food comes from the shops, food comes from the garden. So if we can also start promoting in urban areas, community backyard gardens, as well, but also smart agriculture and creating awareness to young people that agriculture is not just working with mud. Agriculture is also food science, also the entire value chain. So encouraging one another and creating awareness to young people mostly to inspire them to be in agriculture, but also to collaborate intentionally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other input?
I'll give. Oh. Yes. Oh, good morning, sir.
I'm David Beckman from the U.S. I think it's important for this forum, as it reports out basic findings, to reaffirm the commitment that last year's forum made to support for this new global institution, the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. It was President Lula's proposal last year, and there's a real risk that it may be mentioned in a perfunctory way this year, but that the G20 won't won't be consistent. You know, there's a risk because you have the changing chairmanships that the G20 won't have a position that adds momentum to the global alliance against hunger and poverty. Partly it's an advocacy network that works in international fora, and then it's also an operational mechanism to support governments in scaling up successful programs to the national level. So rather than a lot of little food projects, if a government has had success or the neighboring country has had success at something like conditional cash transfer as a way to address hunger, they can scale it up and make it a national program. And the Alliance staff would help to advocate with its participating members, some of the MDBs, and also bilateral and NGO institutions to bring financial and technical assistance to bear on what the government is driving. I think it's an important idea, and especially now when some of the leading aid donors are cutting way back and aren't really interested in international development cooperation, it's important to have this new structure of international advocacy stress the importance of hungry people.
Thank you very much. Any other hands, contributions, any sharing?
I think what David just told us is very important. As I've thought about this issue, I see two different buckets. One bucket is that financial fluctuations and other things often lead people into poverty and not the ability to have food that they can buy. There are solutions to that problem. The leader of our church was the Secretary of Agriculture in the American administration of President Eisenhower shortly after World War II. I often thought of him as politically oriented, but when he became the leader of our church, one of his initiatives was to encourage gardening and to encourage Brigham Young University, which is associated with the church, to do research in how to improve the ability of people on small lots to grow their own food. And so BYU has engaged in a lot of research projects to do that. And our humanitarian efforts right now for the church are actively involved in figuring out how to help people. In fact, one of the people who work in that department was just in Ghana and Nigeria this last week, doing research and trying to figure out what we could do to help with small producers and people who wanted to garden in their lot. So that's in one bucket. And there's a lot of things that nonprofits, churches, and others can do to help. There's another bucket that has problems that I think David is exactly right. You can teach people how to garden and how to grow crops. You can help develop crops that would be effective on small lots. You can do that all you want, but if their nation is in civil war and there's fighting and killing going on around them, people may not be able to grow their own crops, even if they try, even if they want to. And so in those circumstances, it takes something more than the efforts that a small church like mine or some of the NGOs can do. We can do things in one bucket very well. But in the bucket of how you deal with problems like Sudan and others, where war is going on around, it's hard to grow food, and those simply need the benefit and support and help from larger organizations. And so we want to do something that's helpful. I think we can help promote gardening, promote small growers, but we also have to put our voice behind efforts to get the large institutions to help where help is absolutely needed.
Thank you very much.
A very good morning to all of you. Salah Hamad is my name. I'm from the African Union Commission, based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I'm not sure how many minutes I have, but I have just a few things to share. Number one, when food is used as a political weapon. I'm saying this because in Sudan, where I came from, before 1971, our main diet used to be sorghum. So we make our food from sorghum. And then our president was invited to the White House and convinced that sorghum is only for animals, for horses and donkeys. And the alternative is wheat. And then Sudan was promised to receive free wheat flour from the US for 3 years. And we enjoyed eating bread. So the whole diet changed from the injera we used to have to bread for 3 years. It was for free. You go to any bakery and you just pay for a fraction of the prices because the flour was distributed for free. But then after 3 years, we had to buy the flour from the US until today. And then the flowers became a reason to change governments 3 times in the history of Sudan, the wheat flour. So I'm saying that what I'm trying to say here at this particular point, that in many African countries, the diet could change because of not nutrition and scientific issues, but because of political issues. And then that could also lead to conflicts and instability in that country. This is point number one. Point number two, in some of the societies and the communities, the local communities, we see that the youth are abandoning the communities and moving to larger cities. So nobody's growing food anymore. And those who are growing food, they're growing food, and once they die, no continuity. So the land, the water is there, the resources are there, but there is no human beings to continue farming food. So what could be done to encourage the young generation, or at least some of the youth, to stay behind to, continue the growing of food? Last but not least, and I think this is quite important, that in many cases, there will be some food in a community, but then a neighboring community doesn't have food. So sharing, which is part of our African shared values, doesn't exist anymore. And probably also this could lead to conflict, where farmers are farming, but then the shepherd of what they call them, the shepherd of the cattle and whatever shepherds, they enter the farms and they destroy the farms, and then that becomes also another reason for conflict. So the point I'm trying to raise from these 3 examples is that how can we really prevent, as religious institutions, conflict, food from being a reason for conflict? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The one issue that you raised that is very relevant to our own country is farming still an attractive option for young people that have big dreams of becoming successful people or going into other areas of life, and farming isn't the biggest priority there. I'm involved in one project in the Northern Cape where we link hydroponic farming with teaching of math and science in the high school, so that the food gardening project is at the same time providing for the community, which is a very low income community, very poor community, but all the senior classes in the school work in the food garden, and it's part of the math and science training of getting them interested. And it's interesting that many of the children that then complete school wants to go into agriculture because of that exposure. But it's a challenge we face also. Yes, here in front. Where is our lady with the
Yeah, I think one of the maybe opportunities, but also a challenge in this global space, is that so many solutions around food are so local, or maybe they should be more local. I think some of the examples that we've seen highlighted show how when the global system starts dabbling in local food issues, sometimes it can cause unforeseen circumstances. So of course there's these global needs for advocacy for hunger in conflict situations and famine situations and famine-like situations, and we all need to advocate together for that. But I'm wondering how, one opportunity that I see is really gathering and listening to local voices and learning from those local voices. So that I think connects to the Global Alliance and how knowledge management, things like that. But one opportunity, just very concrete, is, I mentioned it, I think, in one of the sessions, but 4SD Foundation and World Vision collaborated on this platform focused on nutrition dialogues, designed to bring communities together to talk about the issues in their own community. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? What are the barriers to nutrition? And what are some proposed solutions? And we've seen, particularly in faith community-led dialogues, really interesting ideas emerge. And I think trying to figure out, can we continue to use this platform, nutritiondialogues.org? Anyone can host. There's very specific kind of process. It's really easy to do. And then you post on the site what the outcomes are. And I think it's both a resource already there, you can look and see what others are doing, but also a resource for us to think about on a global level, how do we learn, how do we leverage the things that we're learning, and even those dialogues themselves become catalysts for action because it brings faith communities together with the local leaders, with government, with other civil society actors and NGOs, and really kind of hopefully is a catalyst for the beginning of that multi-sectoral engagement.
Thank you very much. The floor is open. You're welcome to make any contribution. Yes, the back.
One comment that I would like to make, I see that there are quite a few people that would like to help in food inequity, but oftentimes don't know how. They don't know where to go. They don't know what resources there are that they can do one-on-one. And I do think that one of the things that many of the people here work with nonprofits and work in other ways, many times they want to do hands-on. You know, everybody is asking for money, and I think that people do like to give money, but oftentimes they like to have experiences like we just had at our service project. They like to be hands-on. And so one of the things that I think we do need to do more as nonprofits is to make sure that people have the opportunity to go one-on-one into their local communities, because just about every community does have people who are in need of food. And so we need to be able to kind of get people involved more, because once they get involved, I think that the interesting thing is they enjoy it. They enjoy helping other people. It is something that brings great happiness in people's lives. And so I think we need to spread the happiness and see what we can do to be able to get more people involved in this issue.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone else? You must help me in this session. I can't keep you going for here in front, in the middle.
Thank you. Just to build on that point, we mustn't underestimate the power of happiness and joy. We were talking about emotional health and mental health. And when people are depressed and food deprived and struggling financially, economically, and the stresses that puts on mental health, in the Baha'i faith there is a quote from Abdul Baha, and I'll have to paraphrase it, but Baha'u'llah's son explains that the remedy for sadness is of being of service to somebody else. So getting involved in things that bring joy and happiness and help to others is very healing for the psyche of both the person struggling and the person who is in need of being useful. So we have to see each other as collaborators, helping each other in our overall well-being, and by being of service to each other, we help provide that health for both parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. I believe that any small piece of land is gold. And the important point which I wish to raise is, how can we be able to train the impoverished communities to capitalize on the small piece of land that they have, and so that it can be able to transform into some level of food security, and where they could be doing their planting, they could be able to have access to seeds, where they can be able to nurture their loved ones, their children, towards this food security. I mean, if you look at the cost of living and the distance between the haves and the haves not, then it is one of the most sad realities that we are confronted with. I mean, we speak about hunger, we speak about food, we speak about the necessity to look at those that don't have. We have enjoyed the hospitality of the G20, and I think we can put our hands together for the wonderful way that they've taken care of us and provided to us. But added to it is the element of waste. And when we are having access to much food, then the opportunity of waste becomes prevalent. And then going back to the impoverished communities, for them, every piece of bread has a meaning. And so the point which I wish to raise is, how can the G20, in outflowing from this particular point, translate that piece of land that is gold into productivity? And I believe that having some form of training would be important. And then for us that haves, to be thankful for what little we have. I thank you.
Thank you very much. This in the front. Well, there's another one now.
Thank you. Good morning. I just wanted to contribute around the future generation. We are talking about food, but the number of young people who are not interested in the area of agriculture, they believe that the corner offices might be suiting them. It may require us to work on mind shift of some type. Coming from higher education, we have taken this to be very serious, and the only way we can get students enrolled into agricultural programs is to offer them scholarships. Otherwise, young people are not interested in paying to go and study agriculture. One of the key areas that I've seen of great interest for us, we need to think about. I work with students, Renier University picks students from refugee camps. And we take students from refugee camps, and we implore them that they must be enrolled into agriculture. If they are not taking agriculture and natural resources, then they will take agriculture and climate change, they will take agriculture and something else. Why? Because we have noted that some of these students, when they are studying the next 4 years or so, we pay for them to go back to the refugee camps, and they begin the small clubs of growing vegetables, growing things while they are in the refugee camp. I think we have to be very intentional what kind of skills we wish to pass to the generation of the future to safeguard on food production and food consumption.
Thank you very much. There's another hand here.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I come from a community where there's a lot of poverty, and people need food now. they've got nothing. People come to us, they haven't eaten for 2 or 3 days. And I think it's important that we also remember the dignity of our people. So sometimes people who donate to us, they want us to take pictures of these people. And again, that's another form of abuse, I think. I know you give money, we have to be responsible and have proof. But the way that we do it, we say to those who donate, come to the project and meet the people. So we tell the people, this is the person who has donated this food or the money for the food so that we can create a living for some people, just to eat. The second thing is, what we do is because we don't have land, we plant herbs. So our members plant, like for me, for instance, I plant, what is racis now here? Chilies, yeah. I plant chilies. Sorry, this is not my first language, you know. So I have to find out words from people who know. So, and somebody else might plant rosemary, and spinach is the thing that grows, you know. So we always have lots of spinach, but we can plant it into pot plants, and that's what we do with our members. We just plant, and then we shade, and then we prepare the food. Then we are also in partnership with another NGO just next door to us, who also gives food to the people. So what we do is we share with them, because they've got a piece of land that they have received, and so they plant sweet potatoes and all of these things and carrots, and so they share with us. And what we have found also is in our community, when we dish out food, because as I said, people are really hungry, what happens is, in the beginning this happened, we would dish out food, and then they would dish out food, and another group would dish out food on the same day, and we see the food in the road. So even people who have nothing, they also end up wasting. And so we started talking to each other. So we will give on a Monday, you will give on a Tuesday, and we will give on a Thursday. And so people will have food every day. So what I'm saying is networking is also very important. So there are these kind of ways. So we are saying, yes, this is important. We are talking about the G20. We're going to speak to those people out there. But also when we speak to them, we must remember the dignity of our people on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you for this very practical example at the back on the left.
Thank you. My name is Des Fransman. I'm from Kimberley, South Africa. And I think maybe the example you made is maybe closer to home there in the Northern Cape, where you guys are busy. I am also part of an NPC, Creating Hope Africa, where we are trying to change the narrative from handouts to hands-on. Because your handouts, they're not sustainable. No matter what you do, you can always try and give food, but it's not sustainable, 1, 2. It is also more appreciated if you have grown the food yourself. So maybe we should look at, from an interfaith perspective, look at the different religions. I mean, if you take Islam, if you take Christianity, all religions, Jewish, we all have this one singular thing in all our Bibles, Quran, and so on. It's about giving food to those that are hungry. That's a common golden thread you will find through all of the religions. So maybe we should stop being fragmented in our approach in serving one community, but from an interfaith perspective, put all our efforts together. And maybe in the churches, the yards of the churches, the mosques, the temples, have community food gardens where we have community, no matter from which faith you are, to come and work in that garden, and by so doing, you know, have that dignity that you're working for what you have. But I would like to submit that handouts are not sustainable, and we need to find another way of getting our people to be hands-on. And I know this will be a big mind or paradigm shift, a cultural shift maybe, but we need to get to, I don't know how we're going to cross that Rubicon to get people from living from handouts to being hands-on in Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. In Cape Town, Greater Cape Town area, there are quite a good network of community food gardens that support different community kitchens. And all research show that there's an increasing number of people that depend on that for their basic needs. So if you can have practical examples of having public spaces, even that could be shared for safe food gardens. One of the problems we have in Katu and Olifantshoek is that these gardens are being vandalized. So security and crime is a big challenge. So that we're trying now to reshape it, that we don't support food gardens unless the safety is sorted out first. It's just too costly if everything is vandalized. But isn't it, for South Africa at least, a challenge that local municipalities should allocate a portion of municipal land in the center for a community garden? I know in a place like Grootbrak, that's the case where people do organic farming. And the whole community buy from there because they want to buy organic food and veggies. So, but if this can be a joint venture of different faith groups, it will be even more effective. Just on sharing on this side.
Thank you very much. I wanted to submit 2 or 3 things. One, as this interfaith forum, one of the appeals that we should make to the religious community is to make land available, because churches and mosques in many areas own big piece of land, especially in the rural areas, that can be used as a quick fix in the issue of food security. And that also will talk to the social cohesion at the same time. Secondly, we also need the issue of security and crime in the communities. Because one of the things that we are promoting currently is one household, one food garden at the back, whether you have land or not. There are so many systems and ways that people do to plant or grow their own food now. But the problem we have with the security and the bylaws of the municipalities is that they are selective when it comes to enforcing the bylaws in terms of security. You will find that the bylaws that are implemented or enforced in the city are different in Kwalanga, next door from here. I mean, 10 minutes from here, the issue of security. Thirdly, the involvement of young people in the issue of food security is vital. Many people here from South Africa will agree with me when I say in school or in their schooling days, agriculture was used as some sort of punishment, especially for boys. If you are late coming to school, your punishment is to go and do gardening. And that created a bit of a negative relationship between young men and agriculture. And it was a psychological thing. So I'm saying this because I'm seeing a shift in the Eastern Cape here in South Africa, where young people are showing interest in agriculture and are coming back in numbers. Whatever profession they have studied, be it medicine, law, some are artists in the entertainment industry, but the shift to agriculture, one, as a source of income, two, also addressing the issue of food security. But the question is, how do we then make sure that is sustainable in terms of opening markets and ownership? So my appeal to this forum is, this discussion should go to the ordinary man. What is food security for the ordinary man in the street? What does it mean? And how do we involve communities in terms of ownership? Because out there, people are saying it's this platform's responsibility when we talk of food security, not knowing that whatever happens across the world, The war in Russia, the war in Burundi affect us here in South Africa. So such conversation, what I'm trying to put here is such conversation should also be interpreted for an ordinary person walking in the street so that they can understand and take ownership when we talk of food security. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes.
In vulnerable communities, I'm not talking about a recommendation to G20, but to us as interfaith or leaders of various churches and communities, I think we just have to encourage, like the models that we are having these days in communities, we are empowering the local leaderships in communities because we believe with the Ubuntu that a person belongs to the community. So for those with lack of food security, what the community does is to mobilize their energies. They are given a piece of land, and then they all come once a week to plow and to sow whatever seeds. And then end of day, when harvest time comes, we have a granary for those who lack for food. So it's a model that many people, in particular vulnerable communities, can adopt so that we can have food for our poor people in various communities. But however, giving recommendation for G20, we are saying inequality still remains the thing to be addressed. Sustainability still have to be addressed, and policy has to be addressed, that there is equal distribution for everyone, because the basket is enough for us all. But we don't have, even for those in African countries who would like to take up agriculture, we do not have the capacity. We need training. We do not have the equipment. We need to be given. So what is important is to address the inequality in distribution of resources so that we can make ends meet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've got to notice that our time is up, but as chair, I have the power to override this. So I'll give Bishop Sepuka and this lady in front here, if you can give the mic to them, that we still have those two contributions. Of course, any one of you is welcome to send us a note per email or whatever to be shared after this session.
I hope this has not been said before I came in. I think the other thing that we need to consider in food security is to secure a little market, for people to be able to sell their products so that they can buy other things that they are not able to produce. Where I come from in the Eastern Cape, it is sad to see things being bought from Natal, that could be sourced, locally from the small communities. So we also need to look at that as well.
Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you so much, Doc. I don't know if this has been mentioned, but how about food security in universities? I've seen young people in universities starving, and young girls end up selling their bodies, and then Global Fund would come and say, we have a sex work program. I don't know if there is any mother who sent her daughter to a university of sex work, since our government is have those interventions for sex work. Yet young girls are becoming sex workers because they are starving on campuses. And secondly, I don't know if this has been mentioned, but we have land, and the land is still for the white elites, especially the traditional leadership land. How about having mothers doing tree farming, same like our white business owners who are owning land, planting trees for livelihoods? How about mothers and young people contributing on tree farming as well, because we have so much land? And finally, what is the accountability framework that we are coming out with out of this gathering? When are we meeting again, especially as the region, SADC, the continent, South Africa, KZN? What are the time frames? When are we meeting? Thank you.
Thank you so much. For those of you that didn't have a chance to give an input, you can still do that by giving us notes or sending us emails. We are on the system. Bishop, you've heard that. The board is in your hands for the next meeting. Okay, I just want to say thank you to all of you for your participation. I think the intention is to go on after this forum and to build on where we can connect and support one another. Thank you so much.